All right, welcome everybody. It is the 6th of August and we are in our second live Zoom meeting for the See No Stranger Revolutionary Love Book Club. My name's Eliza and I just am facilitator, so that just means I manage the details behind the meeting, really. Let's take a moment there to just line up in whatever way works for you to just bring our full awareness, our full attention to this next hour together. Working with the theme revolutionary love. What does revolutionary love spark in you? Have you experienced revolutionary love, either on a giving or a receiving? Can you imagine a world that operates from revolutionary love? One of the foundations we know of revolutionary love is wonder and awe. So just come into a feeling state, a felt sense of wonder, of awe, wonder about the experience of wonder. And allow that feeling of wonder to lead us in our conversation today. So feel how wonder opens you, softens you. Feel how our joint wonder connects us. And in wonder, we begin our gathering. And so it is. And so we let it be. All right, I thought it'd be fun because we're just on week 2 to just say hello again and hello and remind us where you are and what is your favorite location, like place to be? Like if you could be anywhere in all the world for the next hour, time and money doesn't matter, location doesn't matter. What is your most favorite place in all the world to be? And then we'll do like we did last time. I'll start and I'll pick somebody and then you tell us your name, where you're from, and your favorite location, and then pick somebody else. And so we'll just circle through the group that way. So my name's Eliza, and I live in Arkansas in the summers, Arizona in the winters, and my most favorite place in all the world to be is on an ocean beach. I don't care what ocean. Warm water, preferably, but ocean beach. All right, and I'll go with Micah.
So I'm Micah, and unlike my picture, I'm actually in Houston. That's actually the Dominican Republic, Punta Cana. So I guess at this moment in time, my favorite place to be is actually at home with my cats, my wife's service dog, my wife, you know, wherever that is. We move around so much that home is sort of an orienting place for me.
Wherever your home is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Celestine.
Yes, I'm Celestine, and I'm in Seattle, and I've ended up in Seattle via quite a few places in this world. And maybe, again, you mentioned, you know, we move, I've been in a lot of places, and I've come to say my favorite place to be is where I am. But I'll have to say, if right now, about Seattle and this area, I had never been Northwest until I moved here 7 years ago. I had no idea that you'd see, I can be standing in the trees and looking out over the Sound or the Salish Sea, And I love that, to just be amongst all the trees and looking out over the sea. It's just my favorite place right now to be. And I will ask Jeff,
Hi. Yeah, I'm Jeff Mignani. There's Jeffrey in the group, I believe, or was last week, so we'll see if he comes back on. I live in Littleton near Denver, Colorado, and it's really nice here. I was thinking a place that I would like to magically go to was one of the last places I got to be in Brazil this March, where I went on a trip. It was right as the pandemic took off in the Western Hemisphere, and things started to get weird on the trip. And ultimately, we had to come back a few days early. But in the town of Lumiar, in a rural area, sorry, I'm distracted. Rural area of the Rio de Janeiro state, outside the city. There's hills and waterfalls that you can walk to, and we walked to this absolutely wonderful waterfall, and just got to experience the energy of the water and dunking in the waterfall. And that was before we were suddenly told that we had to come back. So yeah, that's a place I'd like to go to.
Beautiful.
And I'll pass it to Jane.
I'm in North Carolina, in Greenville, North Carolina. And where I'd like to be right now is where I'm supposed to be right now, which is in the mountains of Colorado. But we didn't feel that we could be traveling right now. So we're and that, is it William or Bill?
Bill, officially William, but I go by Bill.
Okay.
Thank you, Jane. Bill Davin, I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. Eliza and I spend time together when she's down here in the winter. And she and I spent a lot of time in ministerial program. Of course, she went on and did the whole thing and became the Reverend Eliza. And I stopped halfway through. Favorite place to be, you know, I have three favorite places: Phoenix, the beach at Carlsbad, California, and New Orleans, Louisiana. So right now, where would I like to be for a couple hours? And that would be the beach in Carlsbad. I'm headed there the 1st of September, no matter what. I will be wearing a mask though.
Very good.
Oh yeah. Shirley.
Hello, Shirley. I'm in the soybean capital of the world, which is in Decatur, Illinois, and it smells like the soybean capital of the world on a windy day. Let's see, my favorite place to be is probably on the beach of an ocean with my wife. Passing it over to Sharon.
Hi, I'm in Sarasota, Florida, and one of my favorite places to be is the beach, and I live about 3 miles from the beach. I haven't been there in a while, but that's one of my favorite places.
I thought you were going to say San Francisco with that bridge behind you. Who are you going to pass the mic to, Sharon?
Let's see. What about, let's see, William? Bill, have you gone? Oh, okay. What about Micah?
Micah's gone. I think Kate.
He has. Well, I came
Pass
in
the
late,
mic to Kate.
so I missed Kate. Okay.
I'm Kate. Excuse me. I'm Kate. I'm also in Decatur, Illinois, and it truly does smell like the soybean capital of the world. And when I was a child, I was never going to live in Decatur, Illinois, but here I am. Surprise, surprise. I had three favorite places, and one of them was actually San Francisco, which is my favorite, one of my very favorite places to be. The other would be on the beach at Topsail Island with my wife. She can come to San Francisco too. And the other place, because I had three thoughts, would be to somewhere with my great nieces and nephews who I haven't been able to see through this whole time, except once where a couple of them drove over from their town and did a drive-by and brought Shirley a treat and blew me kisses through the door, which was so sweet. But I haven't seen them in a long, long time and would love to see them. So those are my three.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So I have one, just welcome, Sharon. I know you couldn't be with us last time, so welcome. I think everybody else was here last time, so glad you made it. Just a logistical thing, on the 17th of September, I have a scheduling conflict. So I put an email out just to switch the time by a bit. So I'll just ask you by email to confirm. If you'll just shoot back and go, yes, that works. And if that doesn't, offer another time that does, because I'm in a training program that overlaps. It's longer that day than normal. Anyway, so we'll just do that by email, not take time now. But what I thought we could do is just play with, to see what's moving. I asked you to just like bring an idea, bring a thought, a question, an aha, an insight, and just open it up. So just to be really in dialogue, because part of what we're doing here is bringing wonder and building community. And so who wants to start us off? We really looked at chapters 1, 2, and 3. We talked a little bit about chapter 1 last time, but I think we can dive in to 1 or 2 or 3.
There, I will.
Right.
There's a combination of things I kind of put together that I was thinking about from the grief chapter. And there's a question in the printout that says, was there a national moment of grief that you felt the country did or did not grieve together properly, and what could have been done differently? And then I was thinking about that, and then this line in the book on page 62 that says, unresolved grief inside a person is tragic, and unresolved grief inside a nation is catastrophic. It releases enormous aggression. And I was thinking about 9/11, and there was so much grief worldwide at that time. But there was also so much response immediately to anger and hatred. And also this kind of, I felt it was, well, it's just because it's my opinion. I wanted it to become a national world come together thing instead of an international world come together thing, instead of I'm such a patriot. And people were, at least the town I lived in, we were driving around in these trucks and screaming and yelling and drinking beer, and the American flag was flying. And I thought, gosh, there's so much more to this than the going immediately to we are better than this, or look what they've done to us. And so it didn't bring all of the world together at such a catastrophic time. And immediately there was so much hatred towards certain groups of people. And so I was thinking about other events, like there's that National Holocaust Remembrance Day that actually still goes on, where all the people stop. They have like alarm thing that goes off, and people even stop in the middle of the streets everywhere and stand in silence for 2 minutes. Everything stops because everybody stops to remember. Not just those who find it convenient, or at least that's the pictures that you see. And I know we've had some moments of silence. I think silence is so healing if you can sit in it together. And I thought about other events in our country, like when Columbine happened. And we were all so upset by that, of course. But how many people paused to think about the two shooters and their families and the grief that was going on there? And they also died. But I think it's natural human tendency to it's kind of something else I'm listening to, but want to find somebody to blame. And when you start blaming, you lose that depth of shared grief and then maybe shared healing. And then I thought about the shooting at the Amish school, where the Amish community went and actually visited Charles Roberts' widow right away to see if she needed anything and to say to her, you know, we're here with you. Your husband also died. And I don't know what it would take to get there. I think with the leadership we have right now, certainly we can't expect, well, I don't know if any leadership will do it, but we can't expect that to happen. But what would it take for us to be able to gather collectively in a moment of honor and silence and reverence and that kind of connection that could come with that? Because the Twin Towers going down didn't do it. And I don't know if it's even possible, but I would certainly, I wanted to say, when everybody, I gotta quit saying everybody, but so many people were flying the American flag that day, and I wanted to see world peace flags flying, because it was about all of humanity. So that was kind of my pondering on that. Thanks.
I totally agree, Kate. But I got kind of an extremely depressed feeling in the first 3 chapters, because somehow, well, one of the things that really stuck out for me was when she's talking about the history of California's Central Valley, the rich farmland, and how there were Native American tribes there for hundreds of years. And, you know, the white people got there in 1840 or whatever and put bounties on their heads, and they were slaughtered. And I start to think about how often this has happened in the 230 years of this country. And Wounded Knee, you know, George Floyd. It seems like there's this huge amount of grief in our culture that's never, ever been addressed. And the only thing that seems to come out of these tragedies is the stuff you were talking about, Kate, that rah, 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 we're Americans, the land of the free, you know? And I'm having trouble dealing with what she's reminding me of. But I love the way she went around after 9/11 and visited all those places and was just there to grieve with those people. And I'm grateful that she shared all the information about Arizona, about Phoenix and about Val Beer, and because that opened things up a lot for us here in Arizona. But I sort of feel like karma, like it's like, you know, I mean, we're just going this way. And at some point, the place is going to explode. I've always felt from my spiritual training that it was about individuals bringing love into the world. And I'm just saying, I still believe that, but in reading some of this, I felt overwhelmed that my individual action didn't seem to make much difference.
And yeah, thank you. I mean, the idea of grieving, and I don't think we've, you know, done that, and the recognizing us. At 9/11, it was so interesting to me that so much people were responding with this, you know, to striking into patriotism when it was obviously a few individuals. In 9/11, I was living up in Northern California, and actually we had I was working in health department, and a large percentage of our population, there were 3 Gujaras in 3 Sikh temples there, and half of my people I worked with were Sikh, and a few actually were from the Punjab, but were Islamic, and then the rest of the people there were mostly Hispanic heritage. And it just was amazing to me that when I hear about these people developing this patriotism and the idea of, you know, what the experience that, you know, Valerie describes of, this confusing three individuals that weren't connected, and the outpouring of just this idea of our first day at work, we had a staff meeting, and everybody, Sikh and Muslim and us others, were spent it as a time of grieving, and it was very healing, and just talked about our feelings. And even though I can become overwhelmed, I need to, honestly, to me, when I think we as a people, we don't grieve. You think about after 9/11, it wasn't just the patriotism, it was the message was, go on with your life. No, you need to take and call out things. And so I think, because what I see is, I've involved in basically 4 different groups that now in a different way are talking about revolutionary love. And there's a lot of people, and people just, in our country, we've been kind of, our culture was, we go on, we're individuals, we go on with things, we truck on and we get back to our life, and we never take that time to really grieve and call out things. And again, then we end up blaming we want to have somebody to blame. We always want answers to everything. And so if we can blame somebody else for the grief we feel, then we end up, creating our we-they culture. But in the one hand, yes, of course, I feel grief, and it's easy for me to say, oh my, just feel kind of hopeless because look at what's happening around me. And on the other hand, I see a bit of hope because I see so many people are recognizing, or at least I see a lot of people, that are saying, hey, maybe we've done this, maybe we need to take time.
One of the passages in the book that really stood out to me was her trip to India, and how the feelings that her auntie had after her husband had been killed. I mean, she was thanking America. I mean, that stood out to me. Because that was something that I didn't think she would find. That wasn't the response that I thought she would get when she went there to talk about and to share. When she went there to talk to her to find out how she felt and to comfort her, that was the message that she received. That she just felt so much love for America because of the memorial that they had given to her for her husband. Mm-hmm. I just that touched me, that she could feel that way after everything that had happened, after such tremendous loss.
The 9/11 for me was a real turning point. I didn't really realize it until later, but that was the beginning of sending me to seminary, realizing that we simply have to find voice together to welcome people, to hear people, that people felt that the United States had become such a symbol of everything that was sort of, I think, of the devil, that they wanted to blow up these buildings, which seemed to be the epitome of our culture, and just how important it is for people to be able to stand up for each other, to be able to stand up and to listen to each other and see our differences. And Valerie is just such an incredible voice and gives us words for moving forward. And I love how that she is connecting us in book clubs. And I find myself reading her book that I I'm telling everybody I know about this book that they just need to be reading, because it's not a book you can read by yourself. You need to be able to talk about it because it's just so galvanizing. There's so many points you want to go, yes. So I will divert just a minute. One of the things that I really liked too was after this happened and she had to dive into Harry Potter, and she read Harry Potter, and then she decided that he wasn't the smartest, he wasn't the strongest, but he was brave. And she said, she was remembering what her grandfather said, that Sikhs do not hide. And there is no such thing as fearlessness. There is only the choice to hide or to go toward the thing you are most afraid of. And if only together we can do that. That was page 36, if anybody.
I found that passage interesting and intriguing as well. Just in the call to courage, also in the willingness to take time out and go read a novel.
Yes.
Like both of those things are so important, but the call to turn towards, to go towards, to hold the space, not to fix it, not to justify it, not to defend it, not to even go into sorrow, empathetic sorrow that like pulls the whole system down, but just to turn toward it and hold the space, to look at that which we fear or that which we don't know is so empowering. It's that whole witnessing and being witnessed and being seen and starting to see. For me, 9/11 was the year after I was ordained. And I am almost embarrassed to say right now, but my experience afterwards was that we did come together, you know, as a country, not the world. But what I didn't actually even realize until I started reading this was the horror that was happening to so many Americans in the aftermath. Like I just was like unaware. And I'm having that experience ever since the George Floyd. I mean, I think I'm aware. I think I'm awake. I think I don't operate in my white privilege, but I'm aware of my white privilege. But all these things is like, I didn't know that I didn't know. And so I'm so immersed this last few months in, I didn't know. Mm-hmm. And, you know, as a progressive minister, I thought I was open and I didn't know that I wasn't. And I thought, and I didn't know I wasn't. And so this book was really sparking in me a deep level of awareness. And for me, like Bill said, I'm like horrified at some of the things I'm reading. And yet I keep being willing to turn and look and see, because until we turn and look and see and open and embrace, it's not going to change. And where's it going to change? Right here in book clubs like this, right here in communities like this, because then we're going to go out and tell our friends and go out. Anyway, I started taking over, so I'm going to be quiet now, let somebody else talk.
I've been listening to everybody closely, and I'm just really grateful for the conversation. And I guess for me, what I'm getting so much from the book is the whole sense of wonder. And so I'm thinking, I wonder what it would look like to have a national moment of grieving. I'm not sure what that would even look like at the national level. And what would my role be? And what can we do collectively, the like-minded people that we hang with, for example? How can we up that consciousness and move towards that? I like action. I like to know what's my role, what's my responsibility. Sometimes it's to sit quietly and recognize who the expert is, you know. It's not me when it comes to folks of color, right? But to be there and grieve with and honor that space, but to be an accomplice when I can. But what would it look like? How do we reimagine catastrophes so that we can do it differently at a bigger level. I don't know, but it's like going around in my heart and my mind, and what would that look like, feel like, sound like? I'm hopeful.
Yeah, I wonder with you what a moment of national grieving would look like. We may have some insight with the very sad passing of Congressman John Lewis, as well as Reverend C.T. Vivian, about whom I didn't know as much before they passed. And I'm hoping to listen to from President Obama's eulogy of John Lewis. I know Valerie said on one of the calls that she felt more grieved by John Lewis's passing than anybody else whom she hadn't actually met in person. And so, we can try to glean what we can from these moments, but I do think that what we're getting is that we need to learn how to grieve, and I think that's something that Valerie is kind of encouraging us to learn, to appreciate what it is to grieve with people. I was going to say a moment from the book for me that I studied was at the very end of the section that we were reading. She talks about the 4 questions on page 98. And a couple of years ago, with Sounds True, I remember her speaking only about the sword and the Dilruba, which are 2 of the questions here. What is your sword? How are you fighting? Which can be in a very, there's a very much a variety of ways we can do that. But then she also mentions the shield, how we protect ourselves. She says your safety matters. And third, she says, what is your instrument, your Dilruba, which to her is like, what centers you? What is your practice that grounds you as you carry on what she calls the labor? And then she also added on, what's your sacred community? I don't know how to say this word, sun god. And I like how she says, you need 3 kinds of people: someone like Bryn, who sees the best in you; someone like Shannon or Jess, who is willing to fight by your side; and someone like Ram's father, who can fight for you when you need help. I think those questions, we could, those could be questions to check in with regularly with ourselves. That resonates with me. It's like I want to check with myself, like, now where am I at with all those questions, and maybe in a few months from now I could check in again about how this may have shifted for me. I think they really kind of help keep us grounded in what we're doing.
I haven't quite finished reading the section on fight. So I just want to clarify, get your input. Because I've never heard anybody put these things together: grieve, fight, and is she talking about what Martin Luther King Jr. did? Is she talking about what John Lewis did? That we look at those people as fighters? John Lewis said, go out and get in some good trouble, right? If you see something wrong, say something about it. Am I correct? Is that what she's saying here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
She was saying that use violence as a last resort. That at some point there may be a need for that, but they use all other methods. That in the past, people have had to resort to the actual fighting, physical fighting, but now we have other tools that we could use, and those are what we need to use. So I don't think that she's using it in the way of we traditionally think of fighting as a physical response.
Okay.
And she's not using that in that way. But on another note, I was struck by her use of wonder. I have trouble because of my trauma history to get in touch with what she was talking about, how as a child she recalls her sense of wonder. Like, I don't recall that. So when she's saying to get curious about other people, it reminded me of the fact that I need to do that. And then she's talking about how fundamentally we can't get rid of all these isms until we deal with what this country was founded upon, and that's the white supremacy and the domination of a particular, not all Christian theology, but of a particular type of Christian theology that dominates, at least dominates in power. And so as much as I recoil against that, I have to remind myself that I have to become curious about the people who believe that way, and become curious enough in myself and become centered enough in myself to be able to engage with people who believe in that way. And the only way that change happens is when I open myself up in authenticity and vulnerability to people who are so other than me that I sometimes recoil inside being in their presence. And that's the only way that transformation and change happens. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, book discussion groups are fabulous like this, but unless it's taken out to the other and the extreme other, that's where the transformation needs to happen. And so, like, the whole idea of centering ourselves and asking ourselves those 4 questions and getting shored up so that we can go out and quote unquote fight, I guess is like really what I'm taking away, that sense of wonder and awe.
Micah, one of the things that helps me get centered with my sense of wonder is hanging out with my grandchild. I think children naturally have that. So if you can find a group of great children on the beach there, just go for it. Hang out, listen to them, laugh with them, play with them, build a sandcastle, whatever. Just a thought. But I agree with what you said about having to move outside of this group to have those and be uncomfortable. So okay to be uncomfortable and vulnerable, but to have those conversations and build those bridges. Whew, that's tough.
It is. It's very tough.
Yeah, isn't a group like this the idea that we need to be out there in the world? And I know people that actually are a group that's engaged in lobbying, and they come from a particular pacifist viewpoint. And I'm talking to them, and they say, you know, we have to go to these people who are very different than us, but our particular perspective is that there's that of this, everybody has that of God or Christ in them. And so they say it's become a spiritual practice when you have to be with people, to have this wonder about other people. But then the other thing is, you know, how Valerie talks about you breathe and then you push. And so this group, for me anyway, it's my time to breathe and just, you know, be with people. And then I can take that, for me, then I can take that energy and go out, and I have people in my life who see things very differently than I do. But, you know, when I can go out and have a curiosity or a wonder about them and approach them, and it's interesting how sometimes, you know, not always, sometimes you see a spark of, well, wow, we really do connect in ways that I wouldn't thought. Or when I find out, have a curiosity about, why do you see you know, what is it that makes you see the world the way you do? And then I learn that, and you know, I can changes my perspective on them if I can, you know, have that curiosity. But yeah, a book group is not, this kind of group is not my place to go out and act, but we all need that time to, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Valerie says, with her image, I can't remember whether it's in the book or here in your talk, that you're saying that everyone has that of God in them. And that when people are not able to listen to others, when people are filled with this anger and hate and such, they're in the tomb, she says, but you never know when there's can be resurrection, when it can change, that they can break, something helps break them out of this tomb and it becomes a womb, which I just found really powerful, and I think really true. Gives us hope.
Yeah. Micah, if I may share, it doesn't always have to be people who are very strongly opposed to us. I work as a nurse in a mental health hospital, and a group that I took on over 3 years ago, most of that time I've been just by myself facilitating the group. They seem to think that we should only discuss hand washing and brushing your teeth at that group. Well, I felt a responsibility to go far beyond that, based on my education and health and what I feel is important about what's going on in the world and so on. And so I've drawn a great deal on Valerie Kaur starting probably a couple of years ago, and certainly accelerating when she announced the book. But also other sources like Dr. Alyssa Rankin, Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris, and others. And I found that I work to hold a container for patients where they aren't being given space by sadly a lot of my colleagues, and in a lot of places in their life they don't have a space to to feel safe and to learn about things that are outside of the hospital and consider ideas. And I work in the group to reflect to them a variety of voices, people of different races, gender identities, sexualities, things like that. So I think that I want to hold that mirror for them so that they feel seen, so that they feel that they can be heard. And I feel like together, the alchemy of this group has been really to call forth some great things from them and from me, because we co-create what goes on there. And I show up, I do some preparation. Sometimes I just know that something has to be addressed, so I started speaking up about George Floyd's killing 2 days after it happened. The first time we had the group then, after it happened, and then more recently the deaths of Congressman John Lewis and C.T. Vivian. So just what I'm trying to say is we wherever we are, we can have a place to create a space for others.
Cool.
There's so much power in the concept of the sacred container. It's a language that I use often, and as you were speaking, I was thinking about how I wonder how, in my groups and everything that I do, I've got the capacity and the authority to create sacred containers, but how can we take that concept just into our daily practice with anybody we're meeting with or anybody we're talking with, or just that idea of opening to whatever we think other has been up until now, just opening and knowing that there's a safe container. It doesn't mean you have to go up to somebody on the street corner and go, hey, I'm going to create a safe container, talk to me. It's not that. But there's a fundamental, at least in me, it feels like I'm thinking about, there was a group of people on a corner. I walk a lot, and a bunch of really rough looking construction worker guys, and outside of coronavirus and walking around, I kept my distance, but I walked really closer than I normally would have, and really tried to engage just with sights, in simple, just a couple of quick words, man, it's hot today, whatever, meaningless kind of conversation, but in a way that I wouldn't have a couple of months ago, in order to practice my own safe container, and bringing that into the world. And I don't know that makes any sense, but that's what got sort of activated as Jeff was sharing there.
And it sounds like you were also practicing, this is a part of me I do not yet know.
Yeah.
By getting closer and being open.
Yeah. And it's easy right now in the day of the mask and the 6 feet distance, to not engage. In fact, when we were first doing masks, right, I was noticing, I put a mask on to go to the store, and I was noticing fairly quickly that with a mask on, I did not want to make eye contact. So I made a practice to like physically make eye contact. It was a very strange thing. And, you can take that very metaphysical and metaphorical, all kinds of ways, but that the conscious awareness, I think, is part of what we're building in a group like this.
And I think we're, at least right now, it's so obvious that we're offered opportunities to meet those parts of ourselves we do not know, because they're everywhere, because there's so much polarity. I mean, there's the people that wear the mask and the people that don't wear the mask. So people are on one side or the other. So what is that other group really thinking, and where are they coming from really when I get past that immediate obvious division? Because I think so often it's easy to stop at the this or this instead of going on beyond that. And I was thinking, Michael, when you were talking, how would I feel if I decided to go hang at a white supremacist meeting just to get to know those people better as in wonder? And I'm not so sure if I could even do that, but it's an invitation to get to know what's under all of that, because it's so easy to stop at the grouping or the category and not go beyond into the individual and to find that likeness that's in all of us. And there's so many ways to do that, even in just like, watching the news and saying, and trying to watch and see what's under, see what else you see in that person other than what immediately comes to your forefront or what you immediately jump at. And we read a book a couple years ago called Kindred, and it just gave me such a different outlook. We had, it's science fiction, but it's so real. And it's about a woman in, I think it was the 80s or 90s, who was constantly sucked back into slavery time. And she was Black, so she would be a slave, or she would have to hide. But she was there with the knowledge she had of living in the world as it is now, which is somewhat different than then, but still a mess. But then to look at the world through her eyes as a person from now, back in the 1800s, gave me such a different view of things I already thought I knew a lot about. And it just made me open my eyes and my heart so much more to her individual experience, and that how easy it is for me to think. It's just so easy to think, I got that, I understand that. I don't have a freaking clue. Because everybody's so individual, and there's so much more there than I could possibly see when I look. So the invitation to look deeper is certainly most welcome to me.
When she talks about the importance of collecting the stories after 9/11, and says stories are like shards of a mirror, each reflecting a fragment of the truth. And just so how important it is that we do hear each other's stories, so that we can start trying to understand better and come in through stories. I
was going to ask, did anybody see Valerie's last online gathering associated with the book launch, where she was with Van Jones and Chris Jackson? Okay. it was great. And Van Jones talked about how he spent time with people of very different viewpoints. And at one point got very close. He said the last time he went to jail, it was on behalf of coal miners who were trying to get their pensions, which would otherwise have been taken by the company. So he acknowledged his differences from these people, but they build bonds of trust. But I also remember something that he said in there where he was talking about people who hold some different beliefs. And I think he was saying, it was about like some people thinking that like they're all going to be forced to convert to some other religion like Islam or something. I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly, but and he said, you know, for many of us, you know, of our line of thinking, we hear that and we're like, how can they possibly think that? That makes no sense. Or we say, how can they feel that way? He says they feel that way. He seemed to be acknowledging that they have this genuine feeling. So I guess we can work to understand or to wonder what it feels like for them to have that fear, even as we may find it irrational.
That I tried to find that and was not successful. Eliza, is there a way to do that?
You know, Jeff, can you find the link to that? Yeah. Send it to me, and I'll send it out tomorrow when I send out the recordings.
Yeah, do you want me to put it in the chat as well, or no?
Oh yeah, that'd be great if you have it handy, sure.
Okay, yeah, I'll get it.
You know, one of the things that I wanted to bring up that's outside of the book, but so parallel for me anyway, is the course that's happening right now with Charles Einstein, or however you say his name, Eystein, something like that, called Political Hope. And what I really love it, actually, and I didn't think I would, but I felt compelled to jump into it. And it's just only live for free for a few days, like maybe till Tuesday or something like that. But in the second video, they're about 30 minutes a day, so there'll be 10, I think, at the end. He starts talking about revolutionary love. And he's definitely talking about wonder, and he's talking about polarity, and the underlying cause of all of that is the separation that we all feel, and the this and the them, and me versus you, and all of the things. And so I just recommended, I know I put that in one of my recent emails. So if you're inspired to go check it out, I just think it goes hand in glove with what we're doing here.
Mm-hmm. The page 9, when it says, talking about Nanak, Guru Nanak, I see no stranger, I see no enemy. There is a voice inside each of us called Haumai, the I that names itself as separate from you. It resides in the bowl that holds our individual consciousness, but separateness is an illusion. When we quiet the chatter in our heads through music or meditation or recitation or song, the boundaries begin to disappear, the bowl breaks. For a moment, we taste the truth, sweet as nectar. We are part of one another. Joy rushes in. After the moment passes, we can choose to remember the truth of our interconnectedness, that we belong to one another. We can choose to see no stranger. Kind of follows what you were saying. I love that breaking of that bowl that separates us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That might be a beautiful place. We're coming up, we just have a few more minutes, but that might be a beautiful sort of place to begin to wrap up today. So, a couple of links. Jeff put a couple of links in there, so grab those. I'm going to grab those.
How do you grab out of there?
Copy and paste. Or you can click right in the chat and it'll open up a browser.
Yep.
challenge when you open up a browser is sometimes your Zoom then minimizes, and some people have a hard time finding their Zoom. But if you go down to the bottom taskbar, if you're on a Windows machine, you can find the blue icon with the camera in it.
Thank you. Thank you for us not very technical folks.
There's always something new to learn, that's for sure. About people, about our own selves, about Zoom. All right, closing comments. Let's just open it so everybody can just, have a moment to say, as we wrap up today's time.
Thank you. It's just been a wonderful hour with all of you. So thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, that was my word too. Thank you, everyone.
I agree.
Yes, such gratitude for this space and for all of you.
I need it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it feels like we could, go on and on and on, but I also love that it's an hour because we can sink in and be in the container and then go about our business. So next gathering is 2 weeks. There's I think it's Q&A, something with Valerie kind of soon, like right now, kind of, I think.
I think it's
in an
A
hour.
webinar. In an hour. Yeah. I'm not able to do that one, but tomorrow or later when it's up, I'll grab the link to that too and put it on our recordings page. And, if you have any questions or comments, I'm just using Gmail, so everybody's email is on there. So feel free to respond to all or just to me or whatever. And, this is our circle, not just mine. I'm just happen to be the one sending the emails. So thank you all for being here, for bringing your wisdom and your willingness. I think willingness comes to my mind. Gratitude for our willingness. All righty.
all right.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.